First, it's important to know the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion. Sympathy is when you understand someone's pain on a more mental level. Empathy is when you feel someone's pain on an emotional level. And compassion is the genuine desire to alleviate someone else's pain. The question then becomes, how exactly do we get to this place where we genuinely want to alleviate someone else's pain? In my experience, I found that there are 3 very important keys to being able to do so. And that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. So make sure you stick around to the very end so you have a full grasp on how to be more compassionate towards others. With that said, let's get into the first key. We have to learn how to hold space for someone else's suffering or pain without bringing down our own vibration. See, I'm a natural empath, and so feeling someone else's pain on an emotional level never was a challenge for me. But getting caught up in their suffering and wallowing down in that low vibration always did pose a challenge for me. I had to learn how to be able to hold space from a higher place of vibration without lowering my place down to their emotional level. What helped me is understanding that empathy does have its benefits. Being able to feel what someone else is going through does have its benefits, but in the end, it's not going to serve that person or you if you stay stuck in that pain and suffering vibration. To be able to truly serve someone, you must maintain your own high vibration. Why? Because if your goal is to alleviate their suffering, we cannot be in that place of suffering. We must be above that place so that we can bring them up to us. In other words, instead of meeting someone down in their pain and suffering, which is what empathy is, we want to stay up here and hold our high vibration. And if we're successful, we're going to start bringing the other person up to your level instead of meeting them down here. Now that you understand conceptually that we must hold our vibration up here instead of getting stuck in the pain and suffering of the other person, the question then becomes, well, how do we do that? How do we maintain this high vibrational space and container for the other person? Well, that brings me to important key number 2. Don't let your own stuff get in the way. We must let go of whatever judgments, preconceived biases, and past wounds that we hold onto in order to be able to properly hold space and serve the other person. Because if we bring in our own judgments, if we bring in our own wounds, if we bring in our own trauma, then that is going to only project our own stuff onto them. Depending on the situation at hand, you might notice yourself getting triggered or bothered by whatever's happening, or you might notice yourself starting to judge the other person or the situation. Your job is to not let these things get in the way. You have to make sure that you are making them the priority. It's all about them. You're making it less about you and more about them. So how do we do this? How do we, in the moment when we notice we're getting triggered, how do we not let these things bother us? The answer is presence. We have to be present and mindful of what's going on in the moment. See, it's not that you have stuff. It's not that you have triggers and past wounds, because we all do. We just must be aware that we have them and aware when we're being triggered in the moment. And that's how we're able to not let them bother you. Instead of being triggered and unconsciously running away with that trigger or reacting and not even realizing you're doing it, we just must be aware that we are being triggered in the moment. And what we do when we're triggered in the moment is we relax and observe. We take the seat of the witness. We take the seat of the observer who's observing what's going on in the moment. So if you're being triggered, you just take a breath and relax, and you notice that you are being triggered. When you notice you're being triggered, you have a choice in that moment to continue relaxing and observing, or to react. What you do, of course, is choose to continue to relax and observe so that you can best serve this other person. I found that the most optimal state to be in and to strive for is being relaxed but aware. You want your whole body, you want your nervous system, you want everything relaxed, but you also want to be very aware of what's going on. So when you're being triggered, take a few deep breaths, observe, and strive to be relaxed but aware. And you can watch these triggers come up, these thoughts come up, these emotions come up and wash up and over you, while still being there, very present with the other person and serving them the best way that you can. Now, don't be discouraged if you find yourself getting super triggered or running away with these triggers or reacting. That's okay, because this takes practice. But again, the most important thing here is that you become aware, because that's where we're able to start making changes. So strive for the state of being relaxed but aware. So far, we've talked about why it's important to hold yourself in a high vibration, to hold space for the other person. And we've also covered how exactly to do that. Now, the missing piece to this puzzle is intention. We must make it our intention to want to genuinely serve the other person. We might very well have some great advice or recommendations or whatever we want to tell them that we think would serve them. But we have to remember that we are here to serve and cater to their individual needs in that moment. And so before we impose our own recommendation and our own advice, we must ask them the question, how can I serve you? While your advice might be correct, it might be right, if they are not in the right place to receive it, it doesn't even matter. And that's why I say take your ego out of it. Because in that moment, what they might need isn't life-changing advice. What they might need is just your presence. Or it might be for you to go get an ice cream with them and just show your support. And you don't know what that thing might be unless you ask them. It goes to a concept that I learned back when I was in sales, which is first seek to understand, then be understood. We want to make sure that we understand first what they need, what they want in that moment before we impose any of our own personal recommendations or advice onto them. So to quickly recap this video, first we must understand the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion. Then we must learn how to hold a container of high vibration so that instead of us going down to them, we elevate them up to us. We do this by being in a state of being relaxed but aware, so that we can notice and be aware anytime our preconceived biases and judgments come up, so that we cannot let those get in the way. And finally, we must make it our intention to genuinely serve the other person. And we do that by taking our ego out of it, asking the question, how can I serve you? And catering to their individual needs in that moment. If you need more help on not letting your preconceived biases get in the way, I did this earlier video I recommend you watch next on how to let go of toxic thoughts. This will deepen your understanding of being in the moment and letting go of whatever you need to let go of so that you can serve the other person. So watch that as it's coming up next, and I'll see you in the next video.